Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to our big meeting of the year and staff and I think we'll have some people in the gallery. Okay, we'll start with apologies. We have apologies from councillors Peter Jager and Bruce Dewhurst. I believe Kevin is just walk through the door, so if someone would like to move the apology be accepted. Thank you, Russell. Second, Caleb. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, carry. Any notice of urgent or additional business? I just need to note that Dane is present. He's online with us this morning, staying away with the flu. So good morning, Dane. Any declarations of interest? Can I have confirmation of the meeting for the 8th of May, please? Move Caleb. Seconded, thank you, Sue. Move Caleb, seconded Sue for the confirmation of the minutes. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, we will now move into our public forum this morning. And obviously welcome our Shane, our representative from the Merrow Mountain Bike Club. So welcome Shane, the floor is yours and we're here to listen to your proposal. So if I'm going to pop your light on, it's just the button there to press. And then move it here. Thank you.
All right. Pretty simple. What we want to do is retire a snake block, which is a forestry block out of Merrow. We built a purpose-built beginner trail, and then we've replanted all the native bush. Anticipated cost of the ratepayer is $0. Our funding will be through the monetary return of the milling of the trees, crowdfunding, sponsorship, trusts. Expected cost $140K. So we're just after council backing before we actually start doing any work on this, because we don't want to do a whole lot of work and find that we don't have council back. So the snake block, you guys seen this on your computer, so you've seen it up there?
No, I'm seeing it.
Okay, top right hand of the picture there, you've got 3 blocks. If you come just down from that arrow, that's the snake block there, that very funny shape piece. So it's currently forestry. We've had guys in to have a look at it, and basically now is the time to mill it, because otherwise it's not going to be worth shit. It's all falling down. It hasn't been thinned out properly, it hasn't been looked after. And then the next slide, what do I do then? So that's basically a close-up of the area that we do. And next one. So, well, is there another one after that? No more there? No. Oh yeah. So this is an area that has been cleared out. This is what it'll look like. And if you go down another photo, this is 1 year later after planting. The outfit that we've approached, Cambrian and riparian planting, they actually keep their trees and grow their own trees for a couple of years before they plant them, so therefore they're higher and it reduces a lot of the maintenance costs. So if you scroll back down,
Where's that block? Sorry, where's that?
that block there,
Yeah, that was.
I wouldn't be able to tell you. I can get it to you if you.
No, just curious. No, it's fine.
I think it's Karapiro way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, this guy's actually done quite a lot of work at the farm. So what we need is council approval to proceed with the content, and thank you for that. And then we'll decide, this is throwing it out there. I guess we need a memorandum of understanding between the club and the council about how it's all going to go. We'll establish our costs. We'll plan for the completion of the project, obviously resource consent and funding. Basically, that's it in a nutshell. Don't know if you need a lot more detail, but keep it simple.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Shane. Is any questions for clarification? So,
If all goes according to plan, the timeline for get planted this year, this.
Ideally, it's a March, April project. If we could do it next March, April, that'd be good. We'll have to see what events we've got on, because we'll have the New Zealand Mountain Biking Champs again and the Waikato Bay Plenty Champs again. So,
when are they held?
Just February. Yeah. So we had both of those events this year. We had 250 competitors in the Waikato Bay Plenty Champs. we're bringing people into town slowly. The other white patches there, for your information, are forestry as well. And then the green one is actually one of reasonable value. But it's ideally, I think, a 20-year plan is we retire all the forestry there and get it back to native.
Two questions for you. You said that plot is closer to Karapiro. Would that fall, do you think, within the jurisdiction of the Waipa District Council? It's within our jurisdiction.
Waipa District Council finish on that red line to the left-hand side of that green.
The Carabera, I think, was the example photos.
Yeah.
Can you give me a clear understanding of what you mean by backing?
By what?
Backing. Or council backing for the project? What do you mean?
We need permission from you guys to say go for it. That's all we're asking for. So that's all we're asking for. And then we will, and then once we get permission from you guys or backing from you guys to say go for it, you guys, we'll get a plan together. We'll either liaise, I guess, with Mark or Bo Townsend, Bo Timberland, to come up with a plan moving forward. And we're not going to start doing anything until we get approval from council, because I waste that time.
No, that's
So you give us approval, and then we take it.
So roughly, what it is, what's the area we're talking about? How big area?
Hectares, I think it's about 7.
About 7. And have you had a rough indication of the worth of the trees?
45,000.
That's gross net or net. I mean, is it easy to track that out?
Yeah, the guy said that. Well, there's already a track across the so it's easy enough to do. Get them out of there without too much destruction. Or again, it's all part of the finer detail. We don't want to put too much into it until we've got some.
No.
So yeah, 45,000. That'll probably pay for the tracks that we wish to put in there at $40 a metre. So the tracks are for families, to beginners area. Get the beginners and the families out there, and then they just keep moving up into our trail system that we've got there.
Thank you.
And what are the age of the trees? Are they mature to be milled, or are they, well, how mature are they?
I'm just looking for somebody here that might have been around when they were planted.
That narrows it down.
I think they're close to 30 years old. But because they haven't been thinned, we've got a lot of trees this size.
Okay,
We've got a lot of trees this size.
to understand.
Yeah. Because they haven't been thinned, their root balls are not very big. So like with Gabriel, we had a hell of a mess up there. Every time we get a good wind blow, we've got to go through there and clear up.
Here,
Just wanted to get some understanding about those lines. Drip chest, water can drip chest.
Sorry?
But just trying to get some understanding about what those lines are. It'll better when it's nice and tight, actually. Yeah. So, the blue ones, are they?
The blue line,
water drip chests, or?
yeah, they are.
And the purple line is?
Purple line might. Ooh, I wouldn't know.
it's just understanding the boundaries, isn't it, of what's reserve and what's council land. Is that where you're angling, Gary?
That's where I'm trying to get some
Well, you've got
understanding.
that, basically the outline of the bush is council land.
So the red line right across the top that runs across the top of the page.
Yeah.
That's the boundary line.
That's Maori Trust owns that one. Owns some of that land up in there. In devil's in the detail, there's parcels up there which are privately owned, council owned, and
Any further questions for clarification? Everything's all good. Oh, with that, Shane, well,
oh, you're not going to vote now.
no, well, it's not a recommendation. No, this is, you've pitched your idea,
Okay.
and the action would be for staff to consider it for us to be able to make a decision. We
Okay.
can't just make a decision on
Yeah. No, cool. That's
presentation. No, thanks for coming in, Shane. Appreciate the effort you've gone to explain this project to us.
yeah, kept it short and sweet, so it wasn't too complicated.
That's great. Thank you.
Cheers.
Now move on to the meeting. So we've got a couple of procedural items today, and then obviously our LTP followed by the policies that we put out with in conjunction with our LTP. So now item 7.1 is the active recreation and sports plan. Anyone joining online? Oh, Rob and Steve are joining us online. Good morning, Rob and Steve, and good morning, Mark.
Morning. Good morning. No, you have a full day today, so we're trying to keep this as short as we can. Take the report as read. Just really wanted to highlight one or two things. The attachment is essentially the same content as we workshopped a couple of months ago. It's just been dressed up a bit for public consumption with some graphs and pictures. We have used information from the draft in our asset management plans to inform the LTP to an extent, and so we'd ideally like the plan to be effective from 1st of July to align with that financial year and LTP start. And that's why we brought it in its current form for approval today. You may have noticed there's still a couple of minor tweaks to be done. The odd translation, also the odd caption has gone missing. We've been informed and noticed, so that's good. And there may potentially be the odd typo that we've missed. I think I've been a bit pedantic with it and driven Sport Waikato slightly batty with that, but it's not impossible that we might have missed one. Hence why in the recommendation there's that reference to editorial changes, just to allow us to do any minor tweaks before go online. And also just want to acknowledge Sport Waikato is online as well. We have Steve and Rob online. They have a lot to do with this project. Just go straight to the recommendation that Council adopts the text for the Play Active Recreation and Sports Plan as per attachment A, and that staff are authorised to make minor editorial changes to the document as required.
Thanks, Mark. Is there any discussion? Yeah, no, it's a good. I think the thing is, it's a great guiding strategy for informing us of our decisions going forward, that we avoid ad hoc.
I'm happy to move the recommendation for civic arts.
Righty, and a seconder? Lots of people. Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All against? Anyone against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Rob and Steve, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, item 7.2 is the road naming the private lane off Teapoy Road.
Morning there, Adrian, councillors. In the absence of the rest of my team, I'm not sure where Barry is, but I'm happy to. I approve the reports. I'm aware of the detail behind it. I'll assume I'll take it as read. We have a recommendation. We have a process that was followed in accordance with our road naming procedure, and the recommendation for the preferred name is consistent with our policy. I will try to answer any questions you might have in relation to the report.
So I'll move, because I think that's a lovely thing. It's named after his father, Pastor Wayne Gabriel.
Taylor, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. That's right. We'll now move on to item 7.3 as we head into our long-term plan, and our first decision to make on the topic is the Te Aroha Spa. We'll be sitting up here for the morning now.
Good morning. It's great to be here. This is the first in a suite of reports today concerning your long-term plan deliberations. And this brings together the information that we've compiled since your hearing that was held on the 8th of May. So I'll just give you a brief overview of the Te Aroha Spa topic, and then happy to take any questions. So as it states there, the Te Aroha Spa was one of 9 topics that we put out for consultation as part of this LTP round. Council will recall that this was something that was previously earmarked and budgeted in the 2021 LTP with 18.9 million in the plan. And there was a governance group set up to explore options around the spa development. Council put forward in the budget a proposal to budget for 200,000 for scoping and planning works for the spa development and 5 million capital in 26-27. And that was the proposal that we put out to the community. So in total, we received 60 submissions on this issue. Of those 60 submissions, we had 31 people who agreed with that proposed option. 26 agreed with the alternative proposal, which was to cease work altogether on the project. And there was a smaller number with 3 people who didn't have an opinion or provided some alternative comments. At the back of your report, we have provided a list of the submissions that were made on this topic and some comments that staff have provided. And it would be really helpful today if we can just confirm your decision so that we can respond to those submitters back to them individually and with any specific comments you may wish to make. Further in the report itself, there's a number of comments from staff just in terms of responding to some of the issues that were raised in submissions and also the discussion that you had at your hearing or after the hearing around that information that you asked staff to gather for you. So I'll leave it there, Madam Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions to raise? Just to clarify, I guess the interesting thing is around operation costs versus capital costs, and this 5 million is defined as capital costs. Understanding that there's some challenges with storage tanks to be replaced, are they regarded as capital or are they regarded as operational?
Storage tanks are considered a capital item and are renewed, subject to renewal, yes.
Just to further to that, if you look at the page on your agenda, page 58, there's some comments around those tanks and just,
Yes, that's what I highlighted and just wanted to reiterate that it's that will cost to replace them. James.
Yeah, so I guess following on from that, on page 53, there's acknowledgement that council share of additional operating costs per year is going to be close to $500,000 for the 2026-27 year. And that doesn't sit right with me that we're adding operating costs when we're in a very, very stressful environment and the broader public is as well. So it's not option one, it's not cost neutral. I think this room is well aware of my concerns around government organisations investing in businesses, and we're looking here at operating costs being picked up by ratepayers for a small group of people to enjoy a little from the domain.
What's that noise? So, yeah, no, thanks for that, James. Is there the question I'd have is around the spending? Is there an opportunity to increase the revenue?
So if I can, Mayor Adrian, to date, we have operated the spa in a ring-fence manner to ensure that it is generating more revenue or sufficient revenue to meet all costs. If that philosophy carries through, if the council's intent is that this investment of 5 million can occur, and one of those conditions is that it must be self-sustaining by its return, then any cost would be offset by revenue.
and sorry, that was sort of my question as well. So I suppose, I mean, we're talking about, because we could stage stuff too again, couldn't we? I mean, it doesn't have to be $5.2 million all at once, I'm presuming. That's how I kind of, you know what I mean? It's,
No, absolutely.
Organic growth, I suppose. So, because while I I understand council of Sainsbury's concern about that. I mean, I am also, conscious of trying to increase tourism potential for Tiara and our natural resources that we have. We own it now, and it's just a question of can that ownership model still be profitable for the ratepayers.
And so a feasibility study into that $5 million, one of the things, it needs to reflect what council's objectives are. If council's objectives are that it is cost neutral and indeed it does a return, that gets factored into the feasibility study and you have a go, no go decision. You may say that the risk is too high. So that would all be part of a feasibility study. But if your council's objective is we need to invest in this kind of facility as the economic driver and you accept there is some rate input, that also will be factored into the feasibility study. So it comes back to whatever council's objectives are in relation to this.
And I guess the challenge for us is that it's not core in council business, but it's unique to our council because it's sitting on reserve land that council administers. So that is the dynamics. So
there's a lot of councils around the country that own a lot of different things, so this is not totally, out of that. Yeah. My feelings about tourism. This is a economic development project for Te Arawa. I will state it again. The only thing that's really propping up the country at the moment is tourism. And the other fact is that we really, sorry about the farmers. Even the man from Milford Asset Management said tourism is the only thing that's propping up the country, apart from farming. And this is, when was it originally built up there? I mean, it needs
At least some love.
Desperately, yes, thank you, Gary. It desperately needs an upgrade. We want to own it or not, we do, and we can't just get who's
I think it's James' microphone's doing something.
We can't, if we can ensure that there is a staged approach and that we are comfortable going forward, that this is the right move. I believe that Te Arawa, I'm gone as well. That's probably me cutting me off. I believe that Te Arawa does need investment, and I believe that this is one way that council can support the town.
is there any further discussion, James?
Yeah, I guess just responding to that, I've got no concerns or issues around investment in Te Arawa, for starters. But the issue here is it's attached to a single project. Secondly, if the SPA is operating in a way where it's already ring fenced and there's profits generated, then surely there's capacity there to do those renewals and updates as appropriate. And I mean, looking at a couple of things that are listed, a refurbishment of the replacement of the tanks, refurbishment of the reception. I don't see how that's going to generate another $500,000 worth of income when the current income surplus is sitting at around 250. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that just doesn't add up for me. And again, the optics of this, for me, I don't think are good. And looking at the responses, there's definitely not a heavy weighting towards carrying on with this. And thirdly, option 2, shelve it until a better time to make that investment. It's always going to be there, right? That's been the justification for the $2 million that's already been invested in SPAs for Te Arawa. So I don't see that as a barrier.
So just to clarify, renewals are a normal part of business. We had 3 tanks up there. There was a desire to replace one of those tanks because it fell into disrepair. The decision to replace at that point was in the middle of the SPA assessment process, and was also in the context of when the Te Arawa Domain Working Party at the time believed all of those 3 tanks were not suitable for that environment. They were ugly, basically, and that we hopefully something will change. But the real critical decision on the delay of the replacement of that third tank was actually when I analysed the numbers. That tank buys us 2 days if the ball stops. $70,000 to replace the tank buys us 2 days if the ball stops. The bore is the critical thing, that it produces sufficient water for us to operate. We need a buffer system in there, and that's why we've got the other 2 tanks, of which a liner has been replaced as part of normal renewal process. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, you're absolutely right. Renewals are business as usual, and we will do those at the right time. We sweat those assets because there are other bigger decisions in play, but the liner will be replaced. Ideally, I would love to replace, not my decision, but if I were replacing the tanks, I'd replace something which is more in keeping with that environment. But we may have to make an interim decision. So, but to me, there's no stress about the tanks. That's business. It is what it is. I'd be more stressed if I start seeing signs the bore production is dropping off dramatically. Then the business is in serious trouble.
Russell.
Just a clarification, when you're talking about ring fencing the spa funds, does that include this beauty spa?
Correct.
And will we get a report?
Correct.
Tabled shortly.
Yes, the end of June is when we have said we'll come back with a report.
I agree with my esteemed colleague, Councillor Sainsbury. This, to me, not the right time to be flipping out $5 million for anything. The business case didn't stack up for doing for anyone else to come in and do it. It is not our core business. And to be fair, honestly, I'm so sick of hearing the words feasibility study. That drives me insane. We just seem to be throwing money down a feasibility study hole continuously. And how long have we been waiting for the number 7 bathhouse to come on? You know, like we keep talking about things like this and nothing happens. It just drives me nuts.
I guess the challenge with that was with the work that was being done in the star development, pushed all that other projects on hold. It's the same domain.
But that was a feasibility study, well.
James.
Thank you. Adrian, Mania, the bore, you obviously mentioned happening from that. That's obviously. So, I mean, there's no, all the work we've done around the bore, I'm guessing we've got good confidence that it remains.
So we have good data coming out on the production of the bore, and I don't like testing things, but the production has been remarkably, thankfully, very, very consistent. Last year, we got through the whole of the winter season, our busy time, with 2 tanks. We proved we could do it.
Yeah.
But yes, the bore, but, we take what we're given.
Well, sure. No, that's fine, because I know, I mean, obviously we've gone full circle from the big, full noise project, which is fine. And I think it was still important to have done the due diligence around that. And we've circled back to something that we're probably accidental owners of, but we are. And at the moment, it doesn't cost the ratepayer. And is there further demand for increasing that facility? And I think at this stage, and I don't see that being a huge risk for our ratepayers. The fact is that the $5 million capital was in 26, 27. I think we wouldn't be prudent operators or governors if we allowed it to go ahead if the timing was wrong or the business case was wrong. I kind of like the idea that, because I mean, if we'd gone ahead with the big, bold, huge thing, it would have actually put us out of business, because we would have been the big future, which is kind of the irony in a way. We've come back to, I guess, kind of a cool little spa that's a little bit of a point of difference for the town. Can we make that a bit better? Can we increase some revenue from bringing people in? And yeah, so it's not competing necessarily with the big fancy thing, new one in Rotorua or anything like that. It's our one. It's the location's pretty cool, and I see that as a way of making money. And I still, so back to Councillor Whiting's point, I mean, for me, there's economic development in this town that's desperately in need of economic development. And I'm confident that, not like we're running the check out tomorrow, we're able to, but if we don't put it in, we're just going to, and we don't have some kind of a timeline, we're just going to kick that can forever. So, yeah, so.
James is going.
Okay, James.
I just wanted to say that by 2025, this entire room might be not here to make that decision.
Well, that's
So if we leave it in, then whoever going forward can actually check on that. You know, I would hate to be the one that stops something right now when it's for 3 years' time and we're making very, very risk-based strategic decisions going forward, whether it's the right time. I don't think we have the right to stifle it now.
James.
And probably the last point I would just add to that, this idea that there's no risk at including option one. I mean, we just heard right now that a whole bunch of other things in Te Aroha were on hold because of the investigations for this giant spa project. So I'd say that the last term, my view would be that that idea of a feasibility study and whatnot meant that a whole bunch of other things didn't happen. It could have actually delivered some sort of concrete benefit to Te Aroha. So I disagree. I think that option one, even if it's at the stage of approach, again, it pushes everything else into a phase of uncertainty and holding pattern where nothing really gets done. So I disagree that there's no risk around option one.
Hello.
494,000 per annum following completion in 26-27. Is that CPI adjustment? Is that cost increases? What's that? That's a big.
So that the 494 average after it was completed was just for the interest and depreciation estimates. So there was no in the initial budget that went out, it didn't include any additional operating costs. We assumed that operating revenue would increase to that level. So if council wanted the project to be cost neutral, we could also assume revenue equivalent to that 494 average going forward.
And if it's not cost neutral,
if it's not cost neutral, then the rate impact is the 494 average, which is what's in the budget currently.
Thank you.
Any further debate? I guess one of the other things around this, the learnings from the work that's been done and the visits from the operators and the opportunity that they saw, not so much for them to operate, but they could see opportunities around staging it. A couple of the operators that came weren't actually that supportive of the big kahuna, as we started to call it. They could see opportunities around what we already had there. And I think some of that would be talking to the key people. I think another feasibility study, well, surely the water was addressed in that feasibility study to start with.
With the years, there was a reaffirmation, I think, of a report that had been done some years ago. I think I do need to say it is a pivotal risk. I don't want to overstate it, but the woods, well, it's never run out, but it does, when it's dry, become yield less because it's fed, as I understand it, through fissures in the rock and primarily from rain and the catchment feeding down to the lower levels and come up. So, I mean, is it a risk? Yes. How big that risk is, it's really hard to put a definite figure on that.
And I guess the interesting thing would be that we are unique in that it's coming out of the ground in that state, whereas a lot of people add baking soda into the water to create the same effect.
Yeah.
So we have uniqueness.
Yeah.
But it's would that be a backstop if there was a problem and we did what other facilities do and add baking soda, like that's just a throwaway comment. But anyway, Sarah Jane.
There were a couple of comments in the submissions that said, you know, what are we actually trying to achieve? And so this $5 million we're talking about, what are we going to do with it? You know, is it more feasibility studies?
Well,
Is it more investigations? Is, you know?
So I think it's 200,000 to define that.
So shouldn't, before we dedicate any funds in a time where our communities are struggling, I mean, I learned the other day, the median income for our district is $32,000. That's from statistics in, what was it, 2018. So it's probably a little bit higher than that, but I wouldn't imagine it's a hell of a lot more, given the times we've come through. So shouldn't we take a step back and actually look at what we want to achieve first before just ploughing through? Because I just feel like it's going to be more studies, more working groups, and very little results. That's what we've had over the last couple of years.
Thanks, Sarah Jane.
Yeah. Probably just a couple of things picking up on. I guess the graph showed me that this is one of the most highly responded to the question in the LTP. And there is support for option one. But I also think back to the submission and portable given by Jill to the Still Timber and their aspirations for Te Aroha. I think it would be remiss of me not to support those aspirations by supporting this option one, because it does at least continue to give Te Aroha some ability to investigate the potential, whatever the potential looks like. If we do nothing and walk away from it, then we've got nothing.
Sorry, can I just say that Ngāti Tumutumu actually supported the alternative option?
Yeah, no, I do get that, but in their other submissions, they talked about their aspirations for growth and development of their people here in Te Aroha.
I can appreciate we have a really brilliant and unique business up there. And I'm quite pleased that it is certainly making more money than what it's costing us, which is what you want in a business. You want it to be successful and profitable. I take Councillor Sainsbury's point, I take Councillor Tappan's point, I take Councillor Vaughan's point. I would have no problem with the 5 million, but my biggest concern is we are in deep economic uncertainty. I just can't. I'll put it this way, if it was my own money, if this was my own money that I was investing, would I be putting $5 million into a spa? I don't think I would be. I don't think that would be what best benefits my family. And I just think maybe we're looking at this the wrong way. We should be treating this money as if it's our own. And what are we investing in? I would like to think perhaps the best option is right now pause it. And as the economy comes up back to where we want it to be, we've got more money to spend. And I think we have to wait. We just have to wait. It's not the right time.
Just a response to that before I go to Dane. I know you've got your hand up, Dane. If we put it in, there's nothing to stop us from reviewing it in year 1, year 2, the new council to
we're not spending it tomorrow.
Okay, that's just clarification. Dane, you have the floor.
You're on mute.
We can't hear us.
There's a kitchen we can go.
We can't hear you, Dane. You can hear us. Can you put your video on? Oh,
You're on mute.
you're on mute, unfortunately. But it says it's not. Hang on a minute. We'll just look at our settings on the main screen. Just hold for a minute, Dane.
It's not.
It's showing it's muted there. But
It's muted. Okay, try again now, Dane, and just check that your microphone's right up. year. Dane, if you want to just leave and rejoin,
Give you a call.
or flick an email.
Give you a call.
Yes.
Give you a call, Adrian.
Maybe call on your phone, Adrian.
Well,
Hold it to
Yeah,
my conversation.
yes, you'll call.
A new old fishing.
Yeah. The low tech.
Whatever works.
Yeah.
Yeah, this kind of with the telephone, yeah. There was the wind-up.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Yeah, okay, cool.
Absolutely. We've got here that council will come back to the community.
Yeah.
Maybe the commission will agree that the feasibility.
No.
Council satisfied with.
That's all right. We're going to put you on speakerphone so that we can hear you. Okay, so I'll be on speakerphone now. Which on speakerphone, anyway. Yep, go for it. Yep.
On the spa, maybe it's go more to like the main area in general to try and get something happening for Te Rā. I mean, it's the money that needs to be spent on the spa just to keep them going, and we can't shut them down. But I also understand that people might not want to commit $5 million to them at this point too. But you know, there's a lot of work to be done around the spa, around the maintenance too. That you know, potentially if that money is not just pigeonholed to the spa, but goes a little bit wider than that, there might be a little more of an insight to the finance of that, you know, going forward.
Thanks for that, Dane. It's a good comment. Thanks. Cool. Thanks, Sharon.
Just my viewpoint, I think that if you're going to go the whole way with the spa project, you've got to look at the bigger picture, and that is accommodation, that is a revamped town, that is really listening to your community on what they want to see in their town as well. It's not just putting a spa there and you're not holding the tourism in the town. So, yeah, build and they will come true.
It works on television.
It works in Matamata. It works in Matamata.
Right, we appear to have exhausted our go round and discussed. We've got some opposing views. Is there a willingness to consider a reduction in the 5 million?
Yep.
Is that a trade-off? You know, like I'm seeing there's not a consensus here. I struggle with how we're going to come to a reasoned decision when we've got a split council, and what does it mean for the Te Aroha community if we do not invest any money in that facility that we own, that we must maintain, and that always will require some capital at some stage, and that capital only has to come from somewhere. Thanks, Gary. So, what's the appetite, James?
Well, I guess probably 2 points. The first one about the reduction of money. I want to understand the rationale for that, and just looking at on Dane's point about, you know, there's scope for broader investment. I do note that there's almost 2 million between footpath and destination playground already earmarked for the domain. So that's already happening. Yes. So I can't imagine why we would justify reduction, whatever.
Yep.
The other thing is in terms of what our responsibilities are to the current operation. It is already ring fenced. It already has, to the best of my understanding, sound, prudent business reinvestment type mechanisms in place to ensure that it continues to operate in a way that does justice to the opportunity. So I think I totally reject the idea that if you go with option one, we're not fulfilling our responsibilities to the spa at the moment. We are already doing that. It's already running really responsibly. What I'm looking at is this additional investment on top of that to go further that adds $500,000 to the rates bill justified. So I reject this idea that if we go for option two, we are not fulfilling our responsibilities.
Well, we need to make a decision. We've read through the deliberations and the staff comments, and I think it reflects both sides of the coin. So is there someone willing to make a recommendation? I do have, if you want to put up
I'm sorry.
You're
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to move.
yeah.
So what are you moving, Jane?
I'm moving option one. I don't know whether we need to put up to 5 million in there because it's a cold figure. It's just being 5 million. So whether that is of any, but I mean, you know, and I do emphasise the point that we do have it. This will be rediscussed before that money is spent. But I always kind of almost felt we'd end up here embellishing or improving what we had, and I'm comfortable with that in terms of trying to revitalise it. So yeah, I'm happy with option one. But do we do up to? Are we comfortable with that?
Application up to just a term, and it will get revisited potentially. Russell.
I'm happy to second James's
Okay.
recommendation. I'd also like to exercise the right of 19.6 on the standing orders and recording posts, please.
I'll put the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
No.
Against? 2, 3, 4. And Dane, have you got a vote? Put your hand up.
Yes, yeah, you can vote.
You can vote. We need to capture the vote.
Everyone vote.
Sketches. Even money in. I better put that on speaker. So I believe with a show of hands, please, I think the motion will be carried in just 3 hands. But Dane,
Sorry,
Sue, 4.
4.
Yep, so we've got recording, James, Sharon, Barry, Russell, Sue, Dane, and myself. Keep it up. I don't have to exercise that right, but I will. All right, so motion is carried.
The question, did you want to reflect it as being cost neutral, as in those, the 494 would be recovered from,
Thanks. And that's to be part of that.
So I'm just saying, would that be, we just put that under option 1A, that the council would come back to the community and council is anticipating that it would be cost neutral?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
I'm happy with that.
And you would consider that presumably as part of that scoping exercise?
So does that, with that amendment,
Russell, you have to.
Yeah.
and everyone else that voted for is still for?
The amendment says, what are you amending in it to?
Stephanie's just put it up on screen, just so that we capture that correctly.
That can't see it.
It's a bit
So
small.
anticipating so that the council will come back to the community anticipating that the cost would be cost neutral. It'll be cost neutral and further information details following the scope of things.
Yeah.
I think the backstop here is that this is an indication of a plan. It's not happening next year. It can be re-debated if there's more information.
I think there's also a comment that we don't want any more feasibility studies.
Yeah.
I've been around since day one. Feasibility study was the PGF, and that was a long time ago. So we've got enough feasibility studies now. We just have to put our necks on the line, but with consultation.
So just a clarification with the modification on the resolution. So as the long-term plan currently stands, we've got $449,000 the 26-27 year that would appear on the rates bill. So that represents almost a percentage increase in rates. That is now going to not appear on the rates bill, and there's actually going to be a % reduction in what we've proposed for the long-term plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that change your?
No, it's good. Not at all. Not at all.
And Kevin, on comment?
Yeah, I'll might record it against.
Yep, yeah, well, we'll do that anyway. We'll do that roughly.
But I kind of agree with Dane about the ring fencing to this spa. I think opening it up to Main, doing some of the work that we had said we were going to do 6 years ago, I think would have been a much more prudent thing. But
Well, it's in there now in year 2 anyway. We'll discuss that later on. Okay, thank you guys. I know it's a really quite a contentious project that sits outside of our regular work, but it's something that we have.
Basically, we had a very long
Yeah, okay, item 7.4 is now the top decision on the roading renewals. So, next team.
Well, I'll text the report as read. What we have done.
Did I, excuse me, was it typed in, Steph, that I would not take that out?
We take it, Eddie?
Sorry.
Sitting on the wrong side.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Sorry, just my caveat, I'm not an engineer.
Take it.
We have reordered the roading program to align with the government policy statement, with more emphasis, or we propose to, that's what we're proposed to do, to maximise or optimise the amount of subsidy available, which means an emphasis more on fixing the roads, road renewals, road rehabs, and as a consequence of that, taking out funding that we put in for expansion of walking and cycling programs, small passenger transport infrastructure. The reason we've done that is because we believe if we left those other items, walking and cycling program and small passenger transport infrastructure in the program, there was certainly a risk that we would not get that subsidy. We would not be able to claim the full amount of subsidy that we're entitled to. So that's, I'm not commenting about the submission. I just want to clarify what we've done in terms of the amendment to the roading program. Happy to try to take some questions.
Has anybody got any comments on staff comments or submissions, just to make sure that I think they pretty much sum things up accurately? I guess the challenge for us here with this one is that we're taking a risk in our renewals. But I think if we go ahead with this, that the staff will monitor the situation. This isn't going to show up in the short term. This is the medium term, could be a medium term challenge. And I think that's when we will understand it more in that time. Take the risk now, but monitor it so that if it, because there was a obviously in the people that submitted, there was a desire for us to spend more. But of course, the challenge with that is our ability to spend more would only achieve half of what we would do because of the lack of the government subsidies. So I guess we're very reliant on what NZTA funds us, and that is the critical point here. So if there's no discussion, would someone like to move the recommendations? James? And that's number one, that we resolve to make the decision. Okay, and Sarah Jane, did you indicate? Thanks, Sarah Jane, was seconded.
That would be 1A, B, C, and D, and E.
And E, yes, everything in its entirety. So with that, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay. Now to item 7.5, which is the discussion topic of walking and cycling improvements.
If I can take the report as read, and I'm willing to try and answer any questions that the members have.
I guess it's fairly clear with no lights on that with the government policy change that we are not going to receive any subsidy for any work that we do. I think the directive is that we maintain what we have. And we've got that work scoped in the background, so if the policy was to change or if there's an opportunity for some external funding, I'm sure that council may consider that opportunity in the future. So
I was happy to see that the plan was to continue with walkways and so on with new developments. So, that makes me happy that we are continuing with our focus on walking and cycling as we go forward in developments.
And I guess also it's a challenge for our towns, because some towns have more cycle capability than others. And it's just, we have that gap at the moment. But anyway, it's
So I'm happy to move recommendation 1, parts A through to F as it is.
Okay. Seconder, thanks, Caleb. Seconder, James Sainsbury. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 7.6, which is the discussion topic, town centre infrastructure upgrades. Next day, just see your message. Yes,
Okay, once again, I'll take the report that's been read and we'll happily try to answer any questions elected members have.
I guess we've gone around in circles for a few years as to how we were going to spend. So the concept here is obviously to keep our towns fresh and tidy. I think it's with what we've working with Te Araha and reviving the Revive Reefton project that they've seen. So there may be some opportunities there to also work with the community in improving the look and the feel of our town through community involvement. The only question I'd have is just the challenge with some of the pavers that are starting to show a bit of sign of wear and tear, whether it's from the cleaning or just age. What is the expected lifespan of some of those cobbles?
So the expected lifespan for those with is 25 years. However, we would treat replacement of pavers, you know, any that are deteriorating, need replacing as a renewal, renewal budgets.
And so there is
we have a provision for renewals.
Because I think that's probably the thing that people will see. And if our cobbles are starting to lift and around trees and stuff, we need to perhaps reflect on that as keeping the look and the feel of our towns.
I just want to make the point that renewal allows for we wouldn't be replacing whole streets.
No.
We'd be replacing where it's needed. The challenge I think you run into over time is whether you can match, but certainly we've got the provision to replace deteriorating asset, for sure.
Thank you. So,
look, I feel I should say something because I'm the one that goes on about, CBD's vibrancy and so on. But I guess we need to keep focus on making it still look good. I think we get very close to it, whereas, people come and say, gosh, what a great town you've got here. So, but as long as we're keeping our maintenance up and so on, I think it's not the time to do anything in a major way.
And I guess the renewals will also include the rubbish bins because I think they're starting to look quite tight. Just to reassure people.
Through, I believe, anyway.
Yeah, so just to reassure people that we are investing in some of that infrastructure in town that isn't a high cost but will make a huge difference to the look and feel. Okay, can I have a move for the recommendation, please? 6. Russell, you'd be happy to move, so that's to recommendation 1.
Yeah.
And do I have a seconder? Thank you, Sue. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Just in relation to those comments that were made earlier around the vibrancy and the bins, etc., is that something that you wanted to specifically note?
I think Todd's, we meet with Todd and he knows what we want to do at the moment. It's going to be $1 million to pick up all those leaves that fell overnight.
I think the opportunity here is for the ward councillors to, the Matamata ward took the initiative of meeting with Todd and walking the town and pointing out things. And I encourage the other ward councillors, your towns, and perhaps to point out the things that you see. Because I know there are some places where a liquor paint would go a long way to freshening up.
And they're not in 2 minutes.
Yeah. So, and there are volunteer groups out there too that are more than willing. We had the volunteer, was it Rotary and Lions, do the seats up in Te Araha. So, it's not all doom and gloom. We're going to keep the lights on and keep the place looking good. Right. Okay, so we'll now break for morning tea. That's okay.
Only if it's a gin and soda. Yes, so I just from up the spa.
I had to play my heart pills this morning.
Okay, so we get Thank you. Okay, so now we're returning to item 7.7, which is the decision topic, the additional playgrounds.
I can lead off with some development here. So, similar to the previous reports, this is another one of the topics that was out for consultation. As you can see there, we had 49 submissions. Of those, there was 25 agreed with the proposed option, and that was around limiting the new playgrounds to those playgrounds that were already planned in Matamata and Te Araha. There was 18 people that agreed with the alternative proposal, which was deferring the Te Araha playground until the next LTP process. And a further 6 people didn't have an opinion or didn't select an option. So the recommendation or the preferred option is that to keep costs down, we limit our new playgrounds to those that are planned in Matamata and Te Araha, and continue to maintain and renew our existing playgrounds. And you can see there the alternative recommendation if council was opted to go down that path.
Sarah Jane. I'm happy to move that recommendation. I think it's great, Matamata well underway fundraising for the extra for the years. And Te Araha is well overdue for a new playground.
Absolutely. Yeah. So move Sarah Jane, executive Jane Sainsbury. Yeah, I think it honours the money that was already put aside in the long-term plan over the past few years, that there was an allotment for each town. And so we do need to honour that provision. Alrighty, with that, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Very good to confirm, Madam Chair, that council's comfortable with the comments that have been made, starting on page 168. Just in relation to this topic. And if you're happy with those, we can incorporate that back in our feedback to submitters.
If we just look at the camera now and then that job's done. You're done?
Okay, no, I think that's fine. Let's cover things off. There's always plenty of concept on these playgrounds.
Yeah, I guess I'm supporting that. I agree with that.
Yeah, great. Thanks, James. Okay, we'll move on to item 7.8, which is the decision on the topic for the stage for the Matamata Civic Centre.
Largely would take this report as read if you're comfortable with that. As you can see, we had 37 submissions on this topic, so it's a bit less in terms of the total feedback. Of those, the majority, or 23, supported the proposed option, which was to remove this Civic Centre stage from our work programme. And we had 12 people that wanted the alternative, which was to keep that in, but push that out until 2029 and 2030. We did note that the longer we defer that project, the more likely it is to have a higher cost. So yeah, happy to leave it there. Thank you. Any questions?
Poor Kevin, I got in before you got me. Kevin, I know it's your passion project. I think we've been talking about this in and out for quite some time. I liked what I heard when somebody recommended that we look at additional staging, which could be used rather than, we don't have enough or it's not movable or something like that. My recommendation would be that we drop the stage. However, we look at finding out what is from somebody like those who use it, what is actually workable in there. So I would actually, yes.
Oh, we'll just have discussions.
We will.
I couldn't care.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is we have a movable stage at the moment. It's quite small. If we could add on another module or clip on another piece.
About 3. I think 3 we normally get in.
Right. Well, we can have that. We can have that discussion at a later date. But I think the challenge with this was it's a historic thing that when the Civic Centre was built, I think James might have been a new councillor at that point in time. There was a political decision made back then that the stage would not be included. It was dropped off because of the cost. And while we've sort of considered it and tried, it was in your voice.
Yes, your original
voice that the stage came back on. Yeah. And we sort of tried, but it needed a community momentum to make it happen.
And it's still can be facilitated.
It can be, and to be fair, the space that was created for that purpose, because it doesn't have one of those pillars sticking out, enables you to put the stage basically right against the wall, which is really.
Yeah,
really
the build
cool. You don't
has the
fall off the back.
capability.
Yeah, well, so it is.
So it has served a really good purpose. Yeah, I think the stage has the least of our problems on the extent.
I think so. Taylor.
And concurring with my fellow mayor and ward councillors' comments there, I'm happy to move it, the recommendation number 1, parts A through C, as it stands.
As it stands. Is there any kind of seconders? So
Adrian, I would like to make it noted that we do need to investigate the staging. I don't think we want to lose.
yes, would you like that provision put in? Yes, please.
Absolutely, yeah.
We like that put in.
Yeah, for the portable stage.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm happy to consult.
Well, that's right. We can deal with that.
We own those, sorry,
Yes.
we own those ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to confirming, so the discussion there was around the potential for the future stage could be accommodated.
Yes.
Was that something that you wanted to?
Oh,
specify?
no.
Not the, what we're.
It's gone.
Yeah, it's a movable. We need some movable.
Add to what we've got.
For staff to investigate.
Yeah,
I'd
additional.
love to have a stage. I'm sure there'll be other people that do as well, but.
I guess a bit more people on.
This is a good fit.
Alrighty, I'll put the motion. So it's moved, seconded, Sue. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, next item is 7.9 is the discussion on the services we provide. So this is our level of service. That one?
Yeah, I can introduce this one. So again, this was one of the other topics that was in your consultation document. And this was around telling the community and explaining the story that in order to make a real dent in the rates that were proposed, we need to make some quite significant cuts to our level of service. And it was the council's preference that it didn't do that. So it was essentially proposing to maintain our current level of service, other than where explicitly provided. So in total, we had 43 submissions on this. 27 of those agreed with council continuing its existing level of service, mostly for the same standard, and a smaller number suggested that we should be looking to make some cuts or changes. This potentially spans over, there was a number of things that were potentially listed that could be reduced. For example, facility closures and the like. But again, it was the way that the consultation document was expressed is that yeah, it would be maintaining what's existing, what's currently in place. So yeah, just taking questions.
Okay, discussion. I think that we did pre-Christmas we did discuss our levels of service because we did wonder if we could achieve a saving by reducing our levels of service, but we realised that it would be significant cuts would need to be made to make a significant change in the rates. And again, we need to keep our places looking fresh and tidy. We need to provide the services that the community expects and appreciates. And it is what it is. And you know, like there's always times when we don't achieve a high standard because the grass keeps growing or various things where we can be slow at getting things done. You know, we get that comment quite a bit. So if we were to reduce it more, I think that would put more pressure on us having the ability to do the things that we provide. So
I was just happy to move.
Oh, okay, move Sue and seconded James in its entirety. Motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, the next one is item 7.10 is the decision topic on the Te Araha Library.
I would just propose that somebody take the report actually as read. The option that we had put forward was to investigate and deliver a suitable building for the library in Te Araha, with 4.7 million budgeted in 26-28, or between 26 and 28. And we will come back to consult the community once we have a bit more information. So as you can see on this one, we had 52 submissions, and the clear majority were in support of that option, with a handful of people who suggested something different. Yeah. Any questions?
It's noting the rumours went round about the topic, Facebook and whatnot. I think there was a clear mandate here to retain the library services in Te Araha and explore the options. There's a bit of work there to understand and around the seismic building. So Russell, you'd like to know? Callum, have you got something to add?
Actually, Russell beat to the punch, but I'm happy to stick in that. Yeah, it's a great idea. Let's do it.
Okay, so move Russell, seconded Caleb. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, 7.11 is now the topic, is our approach to rates and fees.
So I guess the options we were putting forward here were, do we accept the significant rate increases as needed, or would we want to look at funding the first year from debt and recovering that over time? So of the submissions, half in favour of our proposed option, and 8 looked at the alternative, and it was thoughts.
Again, I guess we have to face up to the reality of rates increases. We've cut, we've pushed out, we've sticking with the must-dos, and this is where we've landed. Any further discussion? Is there anything, any comment from the submitters? Comments there? Review, is everyone happy with staff comments?
I'm happy to move it. I mean, people in general the community in general are accepting of the fact that the cost of business is rising. And it's not exclusive to us, this rate rise. So I'm happy to remove to move option 1 in its entirety.
It's seconded by James Thomas. And I guess the thing is we're facing up to it now. We're not pushing that cost out into the following years.
People got caught last year.
Yeah. And what's changed? It's significant. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Yeah, it's not something we do with, we do it with a heavy heart anyway. Okay, item 7.12 is other comments and attachments received. So these are things that we consult on and other comments that come through on that.
Yeah, can speak briefly to this, Madam Chair. So, obviously we've worked our way through the various topics that were out for consultation. We also, in our document, put out that there were some other things that were on the horizon that the council wanted to look at, so the community were informed about those. So we put that under 3 categories, and that was what is increased in terms of budget, and that was the Resource Recovery Centre, the Morrinsville stormwater upgrades, the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, the Matamata Stadium. We also indicated that we were unsure about the Waitoa water and the future of that. And looking further ahead, we signalled some projects around swim zone, Morrinsville, and water meters. In addition to that, on our website, we had a number of submissions that were received just on general issues that concerned roading, walking and cycling. There were some submissions around climate change, biodiversity and broader environmental issues, our parks, sports field, pools, on financial matters, and there was also some just general comments that were made. This report is really just a collation of all those additional comments that didn't discreetly fit into one of the other topics. And yeah, so it would just be whether you want to sort of work through them individually, or yeah, kind of in your hands how you want to approach that. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? I think there was a couple of submissions where people had written to me, and the staff gave the writers the opportunity to put it in as a submission. There was one about water meters. I actually met with the woman concerned and was able to provide her with clarity and information around what it meant, and helped her understand the purpose of putting in water meters. So that, you know, there's a couple there. Some of them are obviously quite operational around keeping footpaths clear and stuff like that. So that's what we're sticking with. We're managing what we've got. So there's attention on that, and obviously for our footpaths will be motor scooter and pushchair friendly. Russell,
just taking up on board the comments that Philippa made on the Waitara water. I think it is time that we did take some leadership or whatever, and because I don't trust Ontario, if they want to use those words. They, you know, we've got 3 plants closing down there. You know, we've got staff happening. How long are they going to put up with us?
It would be a PR nightmare if they turned that tap off. I can tell you that.
Yeah, they're right to allay that fear. I think the intention is that they will not turn the water off until there is a solution.
And they have wholeheartedly promised that to the community.
Yeah, so we have to start moving in a reasonable time frame.
Supply good quality water. If they can't supply it, they'll turn it off.
Yeah, but they can.
And they do need it for their business.
I think just to allay that concern is that their intention isn't to turn it off, but if we took forever to make a decision, then yes, there would be some pressure on us. So we do need to now start moving with some certainty. We've indicated it in our long-term plan, as we've indicated the work with our resource recovery and how we can improve the waste minimisation outcomes in our communities.
And I mean, when it comes to the Waitara water, we still do need the direction from that community as well.
Correct.
That's a really big one.
Yeah. So we have to give them some certainty around what the cost is and what it will mean to them. Yeah. So we're happy with the comments to the submissions. I think there's
some big money in amongst all of that.
Yeah. So no further comment. So you looking for direction as to how we approach moving those recommendations, or can we? Quite a few.
Yeah, there is.
I think if we do we bundle them in as one, so if we go 1 and then 2.
Yeah, so essentially what your recommendation reflects is what you included in your consultation document against each of those topics. So if council wants to take a different approach, then that would just need to be spelled out.
Yes, James, your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'm happy to move the recommendation as it stands, and my understanding of what that involves is essentially we're closing the loop on the feedback that's provided, which I think is a really, really nice touch.
Yes.
That I really appreciate the feedback that's come in. I think there's some things that we will work away at in the background, and that certainly triggered that, but it won't change in any material way what we're proposing for the long-term plan at the moment. So by way of this recommendation, essentially we're sticking with what we've said, and I am really happy for the staff to close the loop on as per 4, communicate with submitters to their submissions, and where appropriate respond to individual comments. And when I read through the comments, that sort of was the guideline. I'm really happy with how the autos look. So yeah, I'm happy with the recommendation, understanding that that's what its purpose is to achieve.
Yeah, I think it's fairly straightforward. So move James, seconded Kevin. There's a strong direction there. Thank you. Motion, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, we'll now move on to our item 7.13, which is about the policies that we went out with in conjunction with our long-term plan consultation. Answer here probably is there. who was coming over to represent that one?
I think it speaks for itself, really, isn't it? When you look at it, look at the grades and percentage wise.
Yes. Oh.
So this report, Madam Chair, is seeking confirmation of the proposed revenue and financing policy, development contributions policy, and rates remissions that were out for consultation alongside the LTP. We're not proposing any further changes at this stage, other than what was signalled in the documents. You can see there that the nature of the submission. So we had 17 submissions on the revenue and financing policy, 24 on the development contributions, and a further 17 on the rates remissions and postponement policy. And as you can see in the report, staff have provided some comments. Yeah, to take any questions.
It's been procedural, where it's very procedural, isn't it? And it was clear in the submissions around our development contributions that growth should pay for growth. And, yeah, so moved Kevin, seconder Taylor. Please vote, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes. Gary. That's number one. Yeah, now we'll move on to item 7.14, which is the discussion around the rubbish and recycling budget.
Yeah, so this one, obviously, let me just start with the rubbish and recycling area. Is a very cool area, and there's lots of things that are moving. Like we've over the last year, we've gone on to a new 10-year contract, so we didn't have good budget data to sort of project forward necessarily, and things are changing. We can see currently that we're not meeting our projected revenue in this current year for fees and charges, so we don't want to create a shortfall for ourselves going forward. Or obviously we can take a risk, but get a chance to address that. There's also been a decision made when we put together the initial budget. We assumed we'd take over the operation of the transfer stations from the current contractor from 1st of July, but a decision's been made that can't happen from 1st of July. We're not ready for that. Don't have the answers on that side of things, but so we've had to change our assumptions here and assume that we'll continue with the contractor for another year at a varied rate. And then in looking in that at that, there's Louisa said there was a lot of sort of setup costs that will come with getting the transfer station set up and ready to go over the coming year. So the preference is that we sort of keep the budget roughly as it is currently. So those things all together have resulted in a need to increase the budget by 409,000, or the rates requirement. And then on top of that, we also, within this budget, we have to separate the curbside collection costs from all the other costs because they're funded differently. And we're seeing some shifts in where those charges lay. So we're suggesting that the curbside targeted rate goes up pretty much to the level that it is currently, and it's offset by the other rate. Happy to take any questions. It's all very complex.
You've got the light on. Yeah, that's right. I was just going to comment that with levies, government levies and that going up, I didn't see when there was that small reduction in the curbside. I thought, oh, it's a bit of a red flag because its costs are going up. I think it's really good now that there's an ability to split the costs between the two. And I think now with the measuring of the waste at the transfer station, there's a lot more data there to get a better handle on things going forward as to what's coming through.
Definitely, it's difficult in the past because we had the same contractor providing the curbside contract and the refuse transfer station operation. So there's a lot of sort of costs intermingled. So we're going forward, we're going to make an effort to get them completely separate. Now that we've got different contractors looking after those areas.
And just to clarify, because the government levies are going up to $60 a tonne, that's the max. They're not going up again, are they? They're sitting at 60 for next year.
They'll do what they want.
Just a question, Louisa.
We don't know yet.
Don't know yet, so the levies may increase. I think.
Yes, we can guarantee.
Yes. Yes, so I guess the message here for our community is around waste minimisation, and I'd like to add that there's 40 tonne a month of food waste being collected in the district, being diverted from landfill and going to the commercial composting facility at Turahi. It's quite a significant tonnage when there's a waste levy on waste going to landfill as well. So good on the community for using the buckets. I just hope they're not wasting too much food. It's the challenges around waste minimisation. So
I guess all I'm concerned about is the person that I try and work for is that the targeted rate is not in. It's going to increase by 20 cents. I am reading that correctly? Because that's the person that I worry about. Is that, as I say, me, the little lady, me, on fixed incomes and so on. So it states here that the increase will be back 20 cents, and I might.
No,
the last paragraph.
Yeah.
Total proportion of it that should only be allocated to curbside needs to increase by which increase the total and raise in the draft at the by 23.45. Increases it by 23.45. So we'll be in line with current year's rate.
Yeah. So
yes.
Yeah. The increase. Sorry, I haven't got on the top of my head what the rate is, but the increase will bring it back into line with pretty much what we're paying. But
yeah, about 20 cents. Yeah, because it was about $23. It was being reduced.
23, 28 to 23.45. So
yeah.
Okay. As long as we are on track.
Yeah, it's not significant at all.
17
cents. Sorry, Caleb. I should have got my character in there.
Right, that's all good. It's just clarity. It's good conversation because we have to understand what is happening here. And I just really like the idea that we're going to have a good handle on what's actually collected at the gate and what people are taking to our transfer stations, so that we can have an understanding around our resource recovery as well, because that data will inform us going forward around a strategy around what resource recovery looks like. So we can have that info in those tonnages. All righty, is anybody willing to move the recommendation?
I will move that.
Thank you, Caleb. That's 1 to 3.
I'm happy to second. I've got the head around that.
Thank you, Sue. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. We'll now move to item 7.15, which is the performance measures. Conversation with audit.
Yes. So, by way of background, in your long-term plan, we have a suite of performance measures that are tied to the levels of service that council wants to achieve. And we report on these performance measures in the 6-month report that we provide you, and also in the annual report. The annual report is audited, and there is a cost to having these measures in terms of the internal time that it takes for staff and also for audit to go through and to check that we have achieved the measure satisfactorily, and we've got the evidence to back that up. So audit have made a suggestion to us quite recently that we review our suite of performance measures with a review to trying to reduce the number that we have. So what we've done is we've just proposed a few changes to be made, and subsequent to this agenda, I have sought feedback from audit, and they have provided some further suggestions for performance measures that we could remove. So I've put those into your Teams file, and we'll just perhaps if I just go through them one by one. You'll see there in the table attached to your agenda that I've struck through the performance measures that we're proposing to remove. The first one is around our playground safety, and this sits within the parks activity. So currently we assess our playground safety on a regular basis, and there's a check done. This is essentially a business as usual task for the team. and we would plan to continue doing that regardless of the performance measure that we have. We've also got an external assessment score that we do an annual assessment of our playground safety, and we're proposing that we would retain that one, so still giving the community some assurance that our playgrounds are safe. Then in regards to our swim zone facilities, we have a performance measure that we commission external safety and quality audits, and in discussions with Sharon, who looks after these facilities, we're actually doing a range of testing, both internally and externally. And again, it's proposed that we remove this as a measure, and those audit process and checking of our pool facilities would continue. We also have a performance measure around the timeliness of responses to Lagoima requests, so official information requests. And it's suggested that we take that one out as well. So we would still provide a report to the Risk and Assurance Committee around the timeliness of our responses to official information requests. So you still have that information, but we just be removing it from being a performance measure. In a similar vein, audit have suggested that we consider taking out the monthly reporting on health and safety, which comes to you. Their suggestion is that, look, this doesn't necessarily drive performance and improvement, just the fact that there's a report put on your agenda. But in talking with our health and safety team, they would continue to do that because it's really important that as governors you're provided that information. So that would happen regardless. They've also suggested from audit feedback that we review the performance measure in relation to the district plan, which is about our state of environment reporting. So every year, our planning team publish a state of environment update on the website, and that is effectively tagged to our performance measure. We say, yes, the information was updated. So this is a little bit of a difficult one in that it's our only performance measure relating to the district plan function. So in discussions with Ellie, our district planner, she suggested that perhaps a better way of putting that might be to have a performance measure around have we met our timeframes in relation to the district plan changes that are coming forward, because there's a variety of plan changes with the private plan changes and so on.
And
so we can.
How long does it take you to produce that?
Apparently it's really easy.
Oh, okay.
They actually already have that information, so it'd be quite straightforward to report on it. And that's a similar measure that our neighbouring councils have. So just tracking how long it's taking to process, or are we meeting our timeframes in relation to plan changes. You'll see there that we have a number of mandatory performance measures. And the only other ones I just wanted to raise with council was around animal control. So you'll see there that we have 3 performance measures currently for animal control. That is response timeframes, property visits, and street patrols. So audit has suggested to us that we refine this down. So we just have the performance measure around response to complaints. We take out property visits and street patrols. They would continue to do that work, but we wouldn't be reporting on it in the annual reports any longer. And similarly, there's 2 performance measures that we proposed in the building area that we suggest could be removed. That relates to code compliance certificates and building complaints. We generally have quite a low number of those. So it's just really looking at the cost and time of doing this reporting. And yeah, I think that covers everything. So yeah, happy to take any questions. What would happen from here is we, if council's happy with those changes, we would reflect them in your final long-term plan. And then we will be reporting on those over the next 3 years, what measures that you set now.
I was just going to say, it was nice that audit suggested less work.
Well, I guess it comes down to the value of those performance measures, and it sort of duplicates a little bit. And so it's good to refine it. Any further discussion? So would you like to move it?
Just wonder why the removal of that sorry, of the code compliance certificates report. Well, I'm sorry, they're not putting it in.
Yeah,
because we have some that are like collects old airs and they distort the statistics or.
So this one, we don't currently have a performance measure on this. It was proposed by the building team that we start reporting on this. So we already track building consent timeframes, but there was going to be an additional performance measure around code compliance certificates and the issuing of those. So audit have said to us, look, you're already reporting on your building consent timeframes. That probably is sufficient, rather than adding extra layer of reporting. But yeah, it's ultimately council's call in setting the measures that you want to see. So
well, I guess the measures around code of compliance is that everything else should have been with the building consent that's all set in place, the code of compliance ticks off that that's all been achieved.
And maybe there's a lot of people that don't actually end up applying for this.
No, well, you get cased up.
That statistics, so it's just but with that implementation came from the building team, and we're not going to.
That's right.
Once again.
Yes, your moves, those, motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.
So just to clarify, you're happy with to include the changes that I
correct
spoke to? Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to our item 7.16, which is our deliberations. And there's a little bit to cover off in this one. Who's speaking here, Adrian?
Yeah, sure. So this report really brings together all of the discussions and deliberations that you've had during this meeting. What we're seeking here is your confirmation around your multi-year grant funding, as per the table attached, reflecting your discussions at the hearing, confirming the amendments that have been outlined within the budget changes. And Lania's got up on the screen there the budget changes that are proposed. We have just seeking your confirmation around the risks around the metered water revenue. And lastly, just seeking that staff finalise the plan for you so that we can bring it back to you for adoption on the 3rd of July. So it's a little bit later than what we had originally proposed, which was to adopt this plan at the end of June. But what we're suggesting is that we just extend that by an extra week to allow staff to do a bit more QA of the plan and to complete the next phase of audit.
So any discussion? I think the first thing is to we had some questions just with our deliberations around our grants. It's probably the one that's sitting in. We had some questions that were answered, and now my email that I received doesn't bring up the three. There was the Hamilton Waikato Tourism. Sandra, if you could bring them up, please. It's Hamilton Waikato Tourism, Creative Waikato, and Sport Waikato. There were the three questions that we asked at our deliberations the other day, and staff brought those answers back to us. If that changes, does that change your view on our grant application, granting funds to those three? I think is the question. And if not, I guess the people that asked those questions, did that give you answers that you were looking for?
Yeah, so I can give a quick update. So Hamilton Waikato Tourism, we had the request for extra information about what the other council did contribute specifically around Hamilton. So we got confirmation from the CE that Hamilton City Council currently contributed 715,000 and Waipa currently contributes 180,000. Given all of the councils are currently going through the same process, we don't have their final figures. Some have indicated potential drops within their draft budgets, but then there's been further conversation that they may or may not go up. So I guess they're all in the same boat as what we are. And what we've got in your schedule at the moment is 125, but we've got the extra proviso that I'll just read out, which was council grants up to 125,000 conditional on other council contributions. So if all of them dropped to say 50% as an example, we would have to have that negotiation over what ours drops to at a matching level.
When do we have to make this?
final decision today.
Correct.
So the extra provision we've got in there, which I chatted to Lania about, was any funding not allocated will be ring fenced for next year's grant allocation. So that means that we are making sure we're not overrating our ratepayers. So we will be budgeting that 125,000 for this year. Should we say, well, actually it's going to be a X percentage drop, that additional money will be ring fenced for next year's grant. So you will not rate on those. Lania, you jump in if you need to.
From the corner here to Waka.
Yeah, that's the next one. We'll just address that separately.
Yep, so I can do Sport Waikato. So there was a question asked over what did the other two councils sharing our regional collaboration officer, what were they requested? So they were all 50,000, same as us. And Creative Waikato was the other question I got asked. So the current contributions for the other councils are 90,000 from Hamilton City, 10,000 from South Waikato, 5,000 from us, and 2,000 from Hauraki. And what they've requested of all of the other councils this time is that Hamilton City continue paying that 90,000, but all of the other Waikato-based councils are contributing up to 30,000, or they've been requested 30,000.
But we don't know their decisions either.
Correct.
Is there any discussion on those three?
Okay.
The only challenge I have with the Creative Waikato is the reporting is, and I go back to a submitter made a comment about money going to Hamilton. And I think the thing is we need to understand, like it's Waikato, it's not Hamilton, but it's supposedly for our community good. And what's the measurement of that funding? I spoke to South Waikato third term councillor, and for their 10,000, I didn't get a clear indication of what they actually benefited, but just flagging that I think with our MOU, because obviously staff have an MOU with these grants, and we will be looking for the benefits to our community from the money that we grant. We don't have a staff member dedicated to the culture and arts. That's one of the other challenges we have. So, but I understand there was an event in the Mines Gallery last week that Creative Waikato were involved in. So, yeah, maybe they're moving into the space a little bit more. So, if there's any views.
I mean, with Creative Waikato, the reports are wonderful to read, but I am concerned that there's no real clear plan as to what. Sorry?
They don't drill down.
Yeah, exactly. There's
pretty high level.
For lack of a better term, it's a bit of a waffle. And there's no clear pathway as to what they're actually going to do in our district.
What they're offering.
Yeah.
So is there any discussion on that? Because this is our only opportunity now, if we're going to make changes, or if we're not going to make changes. So
I'm happy with the decision I made, but where we are, but for them to know going forward, if they are looking for further grant money, then we would like to see a clear proposal.
So one thing we could do is, obviously, as Adrian said, we currently have MOUs with all of these groups, but it's when we get their annual report each year, it's an operational issue that staff generally go through. So any of those grants over 20,000 come to council for their financial reports and their 6 monthly and annual reporting. One suggestion I have is if we've got Waikato-wide groups such as Creative Waikato, we could add them to the list to actually come in annually to present to council, as opposed to the staff assessing the annual report, if you'd be comfortable with that.
So they can tell us what they actually did for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we have proposed to increase. Caleb.
I don't think we need to change course on this. As Councillor Vaughan has said, the reports are very easy to read and very light and fluffy. But there's nothing of substance in them. We don't actually know dollar for dollar where it's going. So until we get more in-depth reporting and detail from Mike, I'm a bit apprehensive about giving them more. We don't know what we
We're already giving them more because it's 5,000 and we're increasing it to 10,000.
I'm talking about 30,000.
Yeah, I don't.
Let's wait and see if they can give better information, better reporting before we investigate such an item.
I'm just discussing what we decided the other day around the 10,000 and 30,000 is not in the mix at this point in time. So I guess it's understanding what Matamata-Piako will benefit by increasing our grant from 5,000 to 10,000 for this coming year, for the next 3 years. So yes, the discussion will come up if they don't to show that. I just want to make that clear. So you're all happy to leave the grants where they are? Okay, we'll move on to Te Waka and the conversation around Te Waka. Obviously, very last minute that they give up sticks last week. I'll leave this one if you need to. You'll recall when we were talking about our economic development, because the funding for Te Waka of 30,000 came out of our economic development fund. You'll recall our decision was to stick with what we had, and we were just funding Te Waka because we didn't have any other capacity. Now, I went to the BA5 last night in Lawrenceville, and the chair mentioned in his talk to the businesses around their association with Te Waka, and it's highlighted to me that whatever decision we make today, we need to consider our chambers, because they also have a relationship with, or had a relationship with Te Waka. And what does that mean as an organisation with our $30,000 funding? So I'm open to conversation, because there were a couple of options back to us that we could put it into grants, we could leave it in our economic development fund, we could remove it. Yeah, so you don't do.
I'm very keen to leave it in our economic development fund, so we have the ability to make ad hoc decisions when required, because things will come up that are very good value and we want to support. And with tough times, we just need a little bit of a, in my mind, I won't call it a slush fund, but money there that could be used to.
Well, it's key for economic development.
So it should stay in economic development. Yeah.
I think, once again, Councillor White is very excited. We should keep it as economic development.
Yeah, and the word of the day, I think I can get.
Yeah. So I guess the direction I sort of seek is that we seek direction from staff around how we may use that money, and obviously, or that fund, how it could be used in a way to benefit the economic development of our district. It's not a big pot of money, but we'll perhaps add that direction to staff to consider that money.
Could we have some sort of say over that? We will.
I'm sure they'll propose to us what they see.
I think there's some things coming up that would be a great benefit that we realise.
Yes, so I can just read out your recommendation that we've drafted. Apologies for the lateness of it. So I'm making the assumption we're going with option C, which is the $30,000 within the economic development draft budget be maintained for other economic development purposes to promote the services, facilities, attractions already in the district as determined at a later date. And obviously you've got Jenny in the room who looks after the economic development budget, listening to these conversations.
Cool. Thank you. And what's going to, I don't think economic development funding is something that should be that comes up. Need to be used in construction. Yeah, it's going to be constructive. Yeah, and that's where we'll seek direction from the staff.
Is there the opportunity to possibly use part of it, depending on how the other councils are funding microtourism, to possibly bring them up if we do see there's a greater benefit? Given that they're essentially,
let's
make that decision.
We will seek direction.
Yeah, I just want to,
it may be, but we may see. Yeah, we'll see what. That's sort of a watch and listen.
Yeah, well, yeah.
James.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that in principle, except that what's the definition of economic development and how is that going to be worked through? So it's essentially, I don't understand what.
So it's business. I guess the thing for me was in listening to the chamber is that we have other parties that have liaised with Te Waka in the past, and we don't necessarily understand what that meant to them. And I think we need to keep an open mind around that fund with regard to our chamber. Doesn't mean throwing the money.
I don't want to see private pay go to this. It's
strategic, but that's why I said seek staff direction. We're all grasping at straws, I feel.
So, did that recommendation have something about existing things in there, or is it for new economic opportunities as well?
I can read it out again if you like. It was basically quite broad for anything economic development related.
Please.
So $30,000 within the economic development draft budget be maintained for other economic development purposes to promote the services, facilities and attractions already in the district, and to be determined at a later date. So it's quite a broad, but if you would like to leave it there to be maintained for other economic development purposes, and strike out Steph and hopefully bring it up on the screen.
Or to promote services, facilities and attractions, so you say within the district.
I mean, it would
Oh,
be
sorry, I didn't really get that.
a bit bad if something came up that was like going to be awesome and we couldn't use that money.
Yes, put your motion into it.
Oh, okay. It would be nice if we could, if something came up that was going to be awesome and benefit our economy.
Well, it's not a large pool of money. It's not a large pool of money. It's how we can assist in economic development. And I take James' point is economic development means different things to different people. So let's have that. We'd already said we'll stick to our knitting and support Te Waka. That is now not the case. So now we need to change tack a little bit.
So Steph's got your recommendations up on the screen there. So you're looking at 2C. So my suggestion based on that conversation might be to have the $30,000 within the ED draft budget be maintained for other economic development purposes as determined at a later date. That will enable council to have that discussion with staff. So just remove that little bit.
Yes. So, yeah, I guess my comment on that would be, if we're wanting essentially a slush fund for economic development, why didn't we have that in the original long-term plan? Why is that suddenly important? And if we're interested in maintaining $30,000, then surely it would be $30,000 with the economic development draft budget to maintain for activities consistent with the goals of Te Waka. Because that's essentially what it was there for. It was there consistent with the goals of Te Waka, not with now suddenly we've got this.
I guess the challenge with Te Waka is it was a regional fund that was of a regional benefit, and we, to measure what we benefited as a district from that fund is hard to define.
Except I guess your opening point here was around the Chambers of Commerce, and they had presumably Te Waka provided some benefit to them. So I can imagine if they now identify, we've got a small gap here because Te Waka is no longer there, then spending some of the budget on that would surely be appropriate, and in the spirit of what. So why can't we reference the goals of Te Waka in the budget rather than just having this open check?
I don't think it's an open check. I think this is for staff to come back.
Or us to go.
Yeah. And secondly, it's not for staff to come back, it's for us. We're the providing the direction, in my view.
Yeah, it's targeted and it's.
Okay, so it's targeted for economic development.
I'd like it to be broader than Te Waka.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to be around people that fail.
Let's not get so narrow that we're
called out.
There's an economic development fund. This is part of it. Let's just keep it.
We may or may not spend it. To be quite honest.
Yeah. But I think we need to just, what I'm saying here is to reflect upon what the Te Waka funding did in our community and how we can hold it in there. Okay, so we need to, we aren't moving just yet because there's other things to consider within this document. Our deliberations also. Oh, there was the targeted meter with a combination, the waters one. And I had asked the question of staff around the combination of what did the combination of A and B mean. So I guess Lania, you're the one who's there and can answer that question for us.
So need to water. I can share a screen. Oh, it's small, but
oh, Lania.
Sorry. So. So with metered water, I guess what we're highlighting in here is that we're in this current year we're seeing a risk that we're not looking like we're going to meet our metered water revenue budget. We could be short by as much as 500,000. When you look out to next year, that's around 600 and something thousand. So we're highlighting there's a risk there. we have an opportunity to address that now if you choose to. So I've metered water income in terms of the whole water activity budget. Metered water income is a component of the, how you get to the net cost at the end, which then dictates how we the rates required from the water supply rate. So so it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing, because if you start playing with the metered water revenue, it affects the rates required at the bottom from the target rate. So, but in general, our metered water income is budgeted so that it accounts for increases in costs. So roughly our costs are expected to increase about 26%, and our metered water income increased 30%, but in the same margin era. But yeah, it's looking increasingly unrealistic. 4.3 million of metered water revenue. So we're suggesting there's ways you could address that. And we have a few levers you can pull. It's basically you're either playing with the metered water revenue rate in the dollar. So at the moment we've set a proposed rate of 2.72. The other big part of the picture is the assumption we make on the volume of water that we'll be selling, which at the moment we think is high. And then the other area you can play with is the water supply target rate. So down the bottom, I've tried to give a summary of the different options and the risks that these have. So, for example, if you look at this top one, in the current budget, we're saying there's a risk that we're 670 short on our revenue because we're not meeting our current volumes. We could choose to changing the metered water volume that we've budgeted. So we get less revenue from metered water and increase how much we need to charge for our targeted rate. So you see the changes in targeted rates here. Another option is to here we are increasing we could completely offset it by increasing the metered water targeted rate, but that has potential to we've got suppliers that are already thinking about what some future options for water that could scare them off. Jump that high, so that's a risk. And then options C, 1 and 2, are sort of a combination of those factors. So you could do a little bit of increasing your targeted rate, your water supply targeted rate, and changing your metered water to try and completely eliminate the risk. Or you could accept that there's a little bit of risk there that we won't meet our metered water budget. The metered water budget is very hard to budget with any accuracy because there's so many factors that come into that. The weather, what's going on in the economy, all sorts. So, yeah.
I guess the question I have is that my understanding is we've been over optimistic on the sale of our metered water in the past few years, and so therefore there is an operating deficit straight up. The risk of going to $3.33 seems quite high. I don't know how that compares with other councils selling water to commercial. I think that would mean potentially that the metered water would be cross-subsidising potentially. Targeted. Yeah. Sorry?
Probably already is.
Yeah. So there's some challenges there around the deficit. So I guess, is there a view?
I would like to get rid of a couple of options that aren't workable.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of down to, because obviously the experts know about this, intimately. So I'd sort of like to.
So I guess the options there is around the targeted rate, and if it goes up, and it's currently sitting at about 644.
With the 333, Lani, sorry, just the metered water volume is dramatically different from the. We've got 149 compared to 170.
Yeah, so we're saying we're expecting a lower volume, but we're going to ramp up the metered water tank rate to meet our revenue budget.
Yeah, I kind of understand that the maths behind it, but I just want, so you're expecting a lower volume, but do you know what I mean? Where does that number come from, I suppose, the water number?
The volume?
Yeah.
So it's all based around where we project the volume will be for this current year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Compared to that.
Sitting behind,
yeah. So we're making the assumption that this is where we think we'll be by the end of this year, and we assume that will be the same volume going forward.
So therefore, should some of the other calculations have that volume of water in it, rather than just that one? That trying to be too complicated.
Yeah, I guess we're pulling the other levers in those situations, because we're looking at increasing the supply, the total water supply targeted rate. So we're sort of pulling different levers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good.
It's an interesting one.
It's not a bit of a chicken and egg.
And I guess if we had water meters, then we'd know so much more of the residential use as well. So the you can see here that with the options. So currently it sits at $2.72. So there's an option there to go $3.33 and take the whole lot. That's really probably pushing it a bit hard on those commercial suppliers to be, well, we're going to use our own water if that's what we're, because some of them do have their own supplies. They supplement with our water. So there's unintended consequences. We've got to understand the consequences of some potential options here. The 297 then puts it up, it sort of puts it up a bit. And the targeted rate goes up. What's the difference with the next one? 285 and 73. Oh, there's 150 potential shortfall.
Yeah, so you can either aim to eliminate the whole risk or accept that there's a bit of risk in that budget still. That's all based on estimate.
It is, and then it's based on estimates. It's like throwing a dart.
No, that's right.
And the volumes have been decreasing over time, haven't they? Or increasing. What's the trend?
Can you tell you that?
I think it's decreasing from what I understand from years of reporting.
We did have the drought, and I think the consumption was maintained a little bit, but I think people have the industries have started to reduce their consumption.
Yeah.
Given all the moving pieces, I'm comfortable with options. C option 1. 297.
The targeted rate.
Balancing the unknowns across everything that we can. And also, I do realise that that's designed to remove the risk of budget shortfall. But given these other mega changes, I'm wondering if we actually are. So we should probably aim for 100%. Realise we're not going to achieve that.
Because once upon a time we had a balance in the. Now
it's a super difficult, because I was almost looking at that second one because what's the capability to switch the water, to take more of their own.
I can't see the second one, James. What is it?
Oh, the option, the C option. Yeah. So that's still having some risk, but less cost to the water, because again, same old thing. Like, I don't disagree with you, James, per se, but it's just what if we lost X amount of water from? So I don't know.
So one of our major industries is actually talking just about effectively becoming independent. They will accept the need for some sort of minimum charge to maintain the pilot and all the rest of it, but they're looking to effectively move away from that.
And that's the risk that we need to perhaps acknowledge now, because it will change. So is there a desire then for, in our recommendations, we've got that council address the risk of a potential funding shortfall in the water activity from the metered water revenue by, and are we looking to C as a combination of A and B? And are you comfortable with the 297 and the, but also the targeted rate? That there's a combination of both, that the targeted rate increase? I'm asking a question.
I think this has been asked before, but what do our neighbours do? I'm reading this right. Hamilton's like 195 and Southwest Australia's 135. Are we like really high?
It's really, really hard to compare these things because Waikato, Hamilton City, they have a general rate and their water's charged through general rate, and then they have, so they don't have the separate targeted supply water rate. So it's really hard without doing very complex calculations to compare.
And I think also with comparing other councils, there'd be a fixed charge, and I just don't know whether what you're reading is that's the cubic meter rate and what the fixed charge is. So with with what you're charging, is there a fixed rate as well, or is it just?
So the fixed rate is the water supply targeted rate. So everyone
So
pays
there is no other fixed rate, whereas a lot of metered supplies, you have your fixed and then you have your volume, whereas this is a straight out clean volume, including the fixed. So that's where you're not comparing an apple with a pear. Do you know what I mean?
Should we be?
Well, we've got to address it. There is a risk here, and I think there is a desire to do a combination here to increase the cost a little bit and match it into the targeted rate as well. So one, is there a desire to go with one, which Jane suggested, the 297 and not carrying rate? The option two was the risk that we go to 80 and have a 150 shortfall potentially that we would carry. I'm personally a little bit risk averse, given that there's obviously a potential here that we have a user that is stepping away, that 150 will potentially be more, and we're over optimistic. I'd rather be a little bit pessimistic, because you always, when you budget, you always.
So the 297 is the more pessimistic.
Yes. No, pessimistic. It's more pessimistic. Yeah, it's optimistic to go to option two. Correct. So do I have a show of hands around option one?
Are you happy with that?
Yep.
You, Adrian?
Well, it's not. Well, we can't. Well,
not an expert in this.
No, but it's understanding that if we go with option two, 150, we're carrying. Council is carrying risk in its box that the water won't balance.
Okay. I'll go.
Okay, so if we're looking at that, can we just go through? It's a combination of each of A and B.
So we'd be looking at a metered water rate of $97.
Yeah.
And a water supply targeted rate of $673.42 at this stage.
Yeah.
After our final budget.
Yeah, it'll be risky. Yeah, and that's. So how do you want this changed? Because we've got amended the metered water volume assumption to a more comfortable level, requiring more targeted rates from water supply, increase the target rate by 297. We need to.
So I guess you want A and then add to it, increase the more and increase the metered water rate charge to $2.97. Yeah.
Maybe we just order a general rate.
But we are increasing the fixed rate.
Yeah, we are increasing the targeted rate and increasing the targeted metered water charge to 297. So that it gets rid of B and C. It's our A is the recommendation.
Yeah. So can we do it? Council addresses the risk of potential funding shortfall in water activity by metered water revenue by A, increasing the targeted water rate to $2.97. And B, subsequently amending the metered water volume assumption to a more comfortable requiring rate. Just because that will lead from whatever the thing is from 297.
By increasing targeted rate.
Yeah, and increasing the
increase the. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so A is correct. Increase the targeted metered water charge to 297. But we need to address the targeted rates
So and B, amending the metered water volume assumptions to a more comfortable level. And my understanding is that flowing on from that,
which will require targeted rates. So instead of brackets, it will require, yeah.
We've got
And which, yeah. Oh, no, it's not exact.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to leave that at this point because we have still got to relook at our interest rate, which is another section in here.
And so I guess to me, just I guess two things. By setting the water charge at 297, we know there's going to be a shift to the rating. So it all flows through.
So that's clear for you. It gives you clear direction there. Got that gone?
Yes.
Okay, good conversation, good deliberation here around our approach. So we've got a recommendation of 1 through to 7, which we've amended number 3, or 8, because we've got the tobacco in there as well.
Yep.
It's all good.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So is someone happy to move that recommendation in its entirety?
We just wanted to know if you wanted to go through the other budget changes.
Yes, we better look.
So,
yeah.
So
I can share my screen or is
okay?
Right. Zoom up a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Changes, yeah.
Right, so there was a table in your report along those lines, and I've just updated it as we're mentioning things today. So the first one there was just you guys had made a decision to increase the Matamata Stadium to 3 million, and we hadn't increased that amount in our budget. So that was something that's picked up late in the process. So so it's not a change that you've made; it's just us making sure our budgets align with what you're deciding to do.
Previous recommendation.
The second one is about the spas that we talked about this morning. So those changes will make sure that the project is sort of cost neutral. And the LTP from completion, there'll be costs up front that will still hit rates. And they have such a budgeted.
What are the costs up front that will still hit rates?
So we will be funded like we've got interest and depreciation costs until the building's up and operational. Yeah. The third one, I think, and I might talk to you about this one, that we, when we've reviewed our NZTA funding, there's additional subsidy available there, so that's a bit of a win in terms of this budget. So the negatives here are a positive impact on our rate. Let me clarify that. Okay. Then the fourth one there talks about the changes to the rubbish budget that we've discussed this morning. One thing I do need to point out is that we, to satisfy audit, we just need to review our assumptions that we made pre-Christmas about interest rates. And so after today, once I've got now the new debt forecast going forward, I can go back to PwC and they'll provide us with that information. From what I had seen, it looked like there was a slight increase in year 1 and 2, very slight, and then a reduction in the following years, but that could have changed since last week. So
yeah, hopefully. We will hope it would. Interest rates will start to reduce in the next 6 months. So like no to November, yeah. So oh yeah, grants, yeah.
The grants. So with that would bring you to a revised rate increase of the 15.1 for year 1. From we started at 15.7, remember? But in that metered water discussion, the amount that what we were trying to do there was keep the rates at the 15.7 that we started with, so that all those calculations are based on that remaining 296 credit we have here. That's where that was being debuted to. So if with that on board, we would stay at the 15.7 that you went out to consultation with.
So the water will stick us at 15%.
Yeah, stops. Yeah.
Because the water rate will go up there, but
yes.
consequence of services unfortunately. So that 15.1 would more.
Yeah, it would stay at your 15.7. There'll be some changes in the outer years. Yeah.
I just ask you a dumb question.
Sure.
Well, it could be, but it don't think.
No question, dumb question.
This question will get a reaction, I'm sure. Do the water get paid for only by targeted rate? Nothing in general.
Correct.
So when the rural people come to town, they should be charged for drinking our water that we pay for.
Washing hands.
We bring
That's
our
all we
own
have
water.
town. Given we just take the water.
How much did you want for this one?
I'm not saying that maybe we should water should be paid for as a general rate, but use it paid. Maybe they should pay a share.
Adrian's not looking with a smile on her face going, yes.
There were some submissions.
I'm not assuming that anyone on a rural property would actually vote for that, but.
No, there were submissions from people that were questioning whether there was actually the users pay and the people that don't use it don't. I don't go to town and buy coffee every time. The business pays for the water.
I don't drive down your road every day.
Well, you're very good. Very good.
I think we're just moving on from there. Yes. I understand you're thinking of trying to spread the costs.
Spread the love, yeah.
But I guess when a person comes to town, whether it's a person living in town or a person that lives rurally, when they buy a coffee, it's paid for, the water's paid for by the business that you buy the coffee from. We may visit a public loo, but we pay for the public loo as a general rate. We have got that in the general rate. So interesting conversation.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
That was a dumb question.
Not dumb, and provoking.
Yeah, I guess the thing is the people that don't receive the service provide their own water, so they have their own costs. Right. Is there any further discussion? Have we covered everything off adequately?
Clear as mud.
Right. So is someone happy to move those recommendations now, please? So James T. And do I have a seconder? Caleb? Thank you. I'll put the motion. You can see it there. Do I need to read it out, or are you all?
We just bring it up on screen.
Yeah, we've got it up on the screen.
We can't see it.
Okay, we'll just bring it up on screen.
Yeah, we don't.
So made the decision over the Tuaka money and the meter. Right, so move James, second Caleb. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Flavour.
Carry. Good discussion. Right, we'll now move on to the policies that we ran alongside, and Laura's now with us. So the first one, 7.17, which is the adoption of the dangerous, affected and cemetery buildings policy. Welcome. Good morning, Laura.
Oh, good morning, Phil. So as you know, this is one of 3 non-LTP related policies that we consulted on at the same time as the LTP. And you will recall that this policy is, we have due to the Building Act 2004, and that requires each council to have a dangerous and unsanitary building policy. And we're required to review this policy every 5 years. So that was part of this process, and we undertook a review. And there's no major changes proposed to the community, just minor amendments. And we received 11 submissions. The majority, we didn't get a clear consensus on whether they agreed or not. But the majority, it was like they didn't have an opinion or they didn't select an option. But we did receive some really good submissions with some really great feedback, which we have incorporated. And when looking at the submissions, we've identified some themes, and some of them, the first one was there were some concerns about commercial buildings and residential dwellings things like that that's been identified. You'll note there's comments from staff in your documents there. We also received some complaints, if you like, about some individual properties and that they may be unsafe. And so the advice there is for those people to provide that information to the team, and then that can be formally followed up. And then also we received a request from Fire and Emergency New Zealand just to amend that definition of dangerous building. And that's as per the amendment, the change of name basically. So that was resulting from the Fire and Emergency New Zealand Act 2017. So that's just tidying that up a little bit. They're now known as Fire and Emergency New Zealand. So you'll notice that your draft policy has been amended to reflect that feedback. That was great. And in a similar vein, we would also like to suggest, this isn't in your draft, but it's since been picked up since the drafting of the report, just an amendment to clause 6.4.3. This refers to the New Zealand Historic Places Trust. And of course, they don't exist anymore, they've been renamed. And it is reflected in the rest of the policy, but it's Heritage New Zealand, Pōheri Taonga. So we would like to make that amendment at the same time as well, prior to the publishing of the final policy. And so the rest of the report will take as read, and happy to answer any queries that you may have. Thank you, Laura.
I love it. It's great. Well done. I'm happy to move all of my points of the recommendation as it is.
There's a space there to author minor amendments, so that's good. Yep. So you have to see.
Just clarifying that the updated Historic Places Trust is under the minor amendments.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you second that?
Perfect. And just to add that, it's good that Fire Emergency, that was very timely for them to come in and contribute to that policy. Otherwise, we didn't have that. That's great. Okay, so move to Caleb, and Sainsbury. Vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against. Carried. Sorry, we'll move on to the next one, which is our legal highs.
The next one is the legal highs. So this policy, obviously its legal name is Local Approved Products Policy, otherwise known as Legal Highs Policy. You may recall that this policy can restrict the locations where premises selling psychoactive products or legal highs can be located in our district. It's not a required policy under the Psychoactive Substances Act, but however, council's chosen to continue to have this policy. There are no legal highs currently available for sale. However, council thinks it's prudent to continue to have this policy in case further along the line the situation changes. And the policy sets out areas where approved products can be sold from. And the following protections are in place. So there's two. There's a 300-metre distance between stores, and also a 25-metre distance from sensitive sites. And council didn't propose any changes to the community. However, wanted to seek feedback from the community on that. And we received 24 submissions. 14 were in agreement with the policy, and the themes that came through were a preference for a more restrictive policy in essence. And we have reviewed this. We've provided you with some additional information, a memo, and also a further document. Yesterday it's been added to Teams. Apologies for the lateness of that. So we do have a couple of options to talk through with you. And the first one is extending the distance to the sensitive sites. And as per the submission, they really suggested that council extend this. And we've mapped the areas showing the current 25 metres, 50 metres and 100 metres. The area that we've mapped for each town is quite small. Therefore, it means that 100 metres is not actually feasible because it means no
effectively banning.
Yeah, and we can't do that.
We're not allowed to do that.
So then if we move on to look at the distance between stores, which is 300 metres. So this in effect means that the area mapped for Matamata and Morrinsville is actually less than 300 metres, therefore only one store is required.
Exactly how it was drawn up.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly how it was done.
So I would like.
There is, yeah.
Move the status quo.
And
Just let it.
Sorry, there is a bit more. So, but Te Araha is an anomaly where it's slightly bigger, and that was because you can see it's mapped between street to street, so it kind of made sense. So what we are suggesting for consideration is perhaps we could extend the distance to 350, I think, was it? Yeah. Which means that, because currently Te Araha would be allowed 2 stores, potentially. It would be a stretch, but it's possible. So so moving or extending to 350 would just bring Te Araha into line with the other.
We don't have to go back out, like if we make a minor change like that. I'm just trying to figure out what
submissions would, it's in support of the submissions received for a more restrictive policy.
Yeah, and I'm all in favour of being restrictive. I just remember, and I know you've heard me say this before, and there was so much work done around it when we put it together to make sure there was availability, well, that may be the wrong word, for one shop, and that was all, and which is great, and I have no issue. If by doing that we guarantee there can't be more than one in Te Araha, but I suppose my question was just that if we did do that, is that just a minor amendment to the policy? We just go on and do that, or do we have to go back? Is there any other consultation or any other what's the word, hold up, I suppose, to putting it.
Well, effectively just shifting it 50 metres, I wouldn't regard that as significant.
Yeah, and it is bringing it in alignment with the other towns.
Sure. So sorry, Lauren, the 50 just been here.
Yeah.
Right, I got you. Okay.
Yeah, we've just identified a little bit of an anomaly because Te Araha is bigger. It's all a bit unusual because it's not a policy that we're using, but there is the potential, though it's a low risk, that there could be 2.
Okay.
So it's kind of just bringing it into.
So clarification, 350 for Te Araha and still 300 for the other 2, or is it 350 for all 3 towns?
I would change all
3
policy.
So it won't have any effect on the
350,
others, because there's already only 1 allowed in the other 2 towns. It's just Te Araha that could accommodate 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the bottom line, isn't it? Is 350. You know, it's clear that people.
It's. I mean, this is not a policy we actually want.
And the experience we have with vaping probably is what we draw our attention to, and that we have no control over.
I just want.
You're
All I wanted to say is there is no legal highs. I doubt whether there will ever be any legal highs legally. Let's try and keep it simple and without going back out to the community. It's a very emotive subject, but the point is there is no legal highs. I was there first time round all those years ago, and just keep it simple and just quietly. I don't mean quietly do it, but I don't want us to be going out and saying about something that actually we haven't got anyways.
No, that's
Any further comments? There is just one small remaining issue about the naming of the policy.
Yes.
So I did note one
of the
about
submittals,
that.
yes.
So incurring the use of the legal highs term, we did put that in originally when the policy was first drafted, as that was the kind of the term commonly known in the community.
Well, it's not terribly obvious, isn't it? Local approved products.
So it's a bit of a mouthful. So council, can consider changing that, and we have provided some options. So we've looked at other councils, what they do.
So what do other councils have
They
got?
kind of all vary. So there's a mix of terms that other councils use. So there's psychoactive substances. There's reference to the fact that it's a policy for retail stores, for venues. So there's a whole range of different terms that councils use. There's no standard. Obviously, there's a legal name for the policy, which we do use.
With legal highs, I don't see.
Yeah.
Is it semantics? Okay, so we've got. So you've seen on the attachment here that we've got Hamilton sitting here, psychoactive substance, not a substance policy.
local approved products. Hauraki has local approved, and then they put legal highs in brackets policy. Otapahonga has no policy. Rotorua Lakes has local approved products policy. Harmful psychoactive substances. I think we all like. Is it psychoactive substances? Is the instead of legal highs?
What legal highs.
Yeah, but I guess the submitter made a reference to what it was, and are we better to call it psychoactive substances than legal highs?
No, it's hard to say. Well, if everyone knows it, it's legal high, so we just say.
Leave it as.
It's not a big enough deal to.
Because they do like Thames Coromandel call it the psychoactive products.
Yeah, that's
I guess it's the terminology. It's not. It's a psychoactive substance. That's what it is. But James, open to you.
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable. I would prefer to change it to psychoactive substances, but only because in our policy we don't define what in the straight in front. There's no definition of what a legal high is. So,
that's a good point. Yeah, it's a very good point. Thank you, James. Because it is a psychoactive substance. Legal highs is just the consequence of it.
It's not a psychoactive substance, it gives you a high.
Well, it must be psychoactive to give you a high. Right.
So the consensus is to amend it to psychoactive substances policy?
Yes, and we've got a sharp hands.
If it's not a big.
It's not a big deal. It's just the name of policy.
What's this book?
To call it a psychoactive substance.
Yeah, to include a legal name and what they've got.
Yes.
Okay, not bad.
Yeah, no, I think there's a desire for that. So that's part of the minor amendments, is it? Or do we have to include it in our recommendation?
It would be good to
include the recommendation. So we have, we always slot that one in.
Do we have to change the distance and put that as number 1 first?
Yes.
We're keeping the 25 metre from the centre of the site, but expanding the distance.
Yes. Yeah.
300 metre
So
distance.
that needs to be a desire to do that. What that is.
Yeah, so I have drafted some amended wording there, Steph.
Yeah. I just want to know I'm getting it right.
Yeah, it's putting it in the right spot.
Yeah.
So we have a recommendation. Have you got? Paste. It's coming. Yeah, we'll worry about that later. So the recommendation says that we confirm clause 8.1 distance to sensitive sites within its legal waste policy, because that's what it's sitting at the moment. I suppose we're confirmed that.
Yeah.
And then clause 7.1 to remain as consulted on retail premises for which improvement may not be more than 25 metres. And then clause B, 7.1 is the distance from one retail premise to another is to be amended as follows: that new retail premises may not be sold within the term 350 metres. So we've captured that. And those or, you take out the or. And
we want to keep C, don't we?
yeah. Okay. The reason for amending clause 8.1 is to include that. Do we need to specify? We need to specify too. I guess it reflects the missions, yeah.
And align the the existing to align the capacity of Tiara with the existing capacity of Matamata. Something like that, maybe.
So just we'll just
Opportunities. Retail opportunities rather than capacity.
Yeah, that's a better word.
To the existing opportunity, yeah.
Okay, and then we amend the policy name.
Authorize the staff
And then 2 will be 8.1 and 7.1.
So I'll pause. So I'm just confirming, so these are 7.1 out here. And then is this one, the 8.1?
One of those
Trying to
clauses
measure
is 7.1 and one that we
Yeah.
8.1.
Yeah, it's quite.
So 7.1 defines your 300 metres, and then your clause 8.1 is your sensitive sites.
Just sensitive sites, so that's 8.1, and then 7.1 is the distance. That's correct now.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. And that's 7.1 then there because it's around the to a line. That's to do with the distance. Yeah. And then we want to adopt, how do we change the policy name? How do you want to word that?
So I would do, so if we do point 2 is council authorises staff to, change the policy name to blah, 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 to reflect the initiative.
So, yeah, 2.
Legal matters, so much.
So you just come up.
The psychoactive substances policy brackets local authority products. Proposed brackets 2024.
Yeah. So, yeah, honestly, yeah, in bracket, and then 24. Okay.
Would you add we're just discussing, would you add retail to that? I don't know. It's just a suggestion in terms of psychoactive substances retail policy. I don't know.
It'll be like retail venue. Like, is it included in the body though? This is a broad brush. Why would we put none of the others have got venues? I think that's heading too specific if we have a general policy. Because does that capture venues? Because it's not that, like the potential they'd be selling the venues anyway. So it's the sale of. Does that capture it?
No, that's fine.
Yep. Okay, so who is happy to move that recommendation?
For number 2, do we want to say to reflect the definition included in the policy?
It's quite complicated considering there's no legal.
Okay.
I think it's in, well, I guess we're renaming it. It's the submitter had raised it with us, drew our attention to it. So psychoactive substances is the term used in the Act rather than. Yeah. So it reflects the definition basically.
Yeah, so in response to a submitter and reflecting the definition, the legal definition, the Act.
Yeah, to reflect the legal definition and the,
used in the Act.
I don't think we have to mention the submitter, do we?
Can we say legal term?
Oh, legal term. Okay.
As long as we tell the submitter that we have changed it.
Oh, that means, yeah. Okay, so
we're aligning. Okay.
Oh, the numbers, so it's going to change the numbers. It's okay, it's tidying up.
You were saying the psychoactive at the start of those, sorry.
Yeah. Psychoactive substance.
It's missed off here.
Isn't this wonderful like modify stuff in real time? Everybody watching it.
Yeah.
Okay, would someone like to move this recommendation, please? Come to agreement. Move Caleb. Second Gary. With motion, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Clause 3 is 2/2024.
Anyone against? Carried. Good piece of work. I think it's and really note the submitters taking the time to engage with us, and I think that was quite a poignant point about legal advice. Like that's maybe semantics to some, but it's actually true to the term. Good. I have moved Caleb seconded here. Okay, we will now move on to item 7.19, which is the adoption of the smoke-free outdoor spaces policy, which includes vaping. Yeah. Adrian. So this is a policy you may recall it's not statutory, it's not required by law, but it's one that council has chosen to have in place just to support the health and well-being of its community. And the major aspect of this policy is that it outlines some smoke-free areas, public areas, and we undertook a review. Didn't propose any major changes, just some minor amendments. And we did receive 17 submissions on this one. Again, the majority kind of were didn't provide an opinion, so it was quite an interesting one. They were like, they didn't select an option, but again, we did get some real gems in the submission. And so some of the themes were around commenting about the effectiveness of the policy, including enforcement, queries about how is council enforcing this policy. There were some comments about potentially there needs to be more signage, aspects like that. There were some comments around vaping, so I don't know, potentially it's not clear that this policy includes vaping, although it is in the policy, that it does include vaping. And we also did receive some support of the policy. We did have a submission come in and attend the hearings as well to support their submission. And that related to supporting community health, and also made the point about less litter, cigarette butts and things like that. So we're not recommending any changes to the policy following consultation. But as we have talked to council about in the lead up to consultation, is around potentially looking at maybe an awareness campaign or something of that nature to support the effectiveness or awareness of the policy sometime in the future. So yeah, happy to take any queries about this one. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, my only comment to the awareness campaign would be that we would have to actually police the areas, but that would be.
I think there's merit in putting signs up. I think the conversation when we were talking about this is that how we show some leadership. I remember Gary, you mentioning that around showing some leadership around as a council as to what this policy means to our community. It is a goodwill one, because the cost of enforcing, it's like parking wardens. It's about community good and consideration of other people, of non-smokers, really. Yeah. And there were questions around people being able to smoke out in the street. Well, if you dine on the street, you can't. But if the business has a laneway or whatever in their property, they may smoke there, but they're technically not meant to smoke out on the street. That's what does happen. I have seen it. Yeah, but potentially. People smoking in this area is not necessarily a deliberate, and against the area. They just might not know about it, because obviously we don't have signs up everywhere. So perhaps some awareness campaign might help. Maybe people aren't even aware of the area. It's a two-pronged thing, isn't it? It's to sort of move the visibility of smoking, but also for people that don't smoke, it's that consideration of those that don't smoke to not be.
How popular a sign would be at a restaurant?
No, and that's the thing. But it's about but signs can be at the sports fields and your playgrounds, those public spaces where it is openly public. It's not
where people think they can smoke because they're outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll move that soon? For the second soon. I was Gary have a slide on.
I was only just going to comment that it's more about the denormalisation of smoking for the next generation, so that we don't have to smoke.
Start.
Yeah.
Do you have any second?
Yeah. If I can go with that, I'll go for Sue moved and Gary seconded. Motion, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Carried. Okay, and then the 1 is 8.1 is our civic financial services limited AGM. So what year are we in with that? Not that it's an outside issue anyway. It's an interesting one with it being wound up. The purpose of this today is to appoint a proxy and you think Laura,
I can probably speak to this one. So this one is relatively administrative in nature. Council is a shareholder of Civic Assurance. We've got a 1% shareholding in the company. And as a result of that, we've got the ability to vote at the AGM, which is coming up. And we're just asked to either send a member to attend the AGM in person or via a proxy. And the matters that are raised are the adoption of the annual report. So this is the annual report up to the 31st of December 2023, and to appoint the auditor, and also to confirm the reappointment of one of the directors, Nicola Mills, and Sue Bidrose, who would be coming on as a new director after this AGM meeting. So there's no election required because they were the only two people that put their nominations forward. So effectively, they've been accepted or will be accepted following the meeting. So yeah, just seeking council confirmation on how you want to vote and exercise that proxy at the meeting.
Any discussion? We have to put in a proxy, so I guess that can be made.
Yes.
That's what
I'd like to appoint Mayor Adrian.
And I'll second the appointment.
And with the recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4.
Can I just
Basil retired.
Can I just confirm? So if we look at the proxy form that we've been given, we just need to obviously just indicate for or against to those two items. So it's just
and our intention is for.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so it's moved. So second, Caleb. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes. Harry. Alrighty. Well, that concludes our agenda for the day. I just want to make some closing comments. I'd firstly like to acknowledge the efforts of the management and staff in producing this LPB. It's been a big piece of work. I'd also like to acknowledge councillors for your engagement. I think it's been a robust discussion for the past 6 months or so. It's more than that now. It's probably 8 months. We made a conscious decision around keeping the waters in, which was contrary to the legislation at the time, but I think it's put us in a good position that we've created certainty for the organisation moving forward. We've put this LTP in place and we will carry on and deliver the projects as planned. Whereas other councils didn't include the 3 waters in, they're doing enhanced annual plans and they have to address their long-term plans. So they're sort of moving out of the lane that we work in a 3-year cycle. So I'm sure that would give staff a comfort that they're just continuing on with the routines that we follow. Our key focus is obviously to look after what we've got and optimise our community assets and facilities, and maintain our services. It's critical to our communities. And I think given the risk we've taken with the roading renewals, we'll review that in the years to come as to the impacts that might have going forward. We'll monitor that, but it's not going to be an apparent issue just now, and because it may change with government funding and things like that. But I think also I'd like to acknowledge the volunteers that work in the community that actually save the ratepayer money, because there are a large number of organisations, and some of them we do give a little bit of funding to in our long-term planning, but they do contribute a significant amount of energy and time to the benefit of our communities, and I think it goes unnoticed by many in the general public. They just think council does, and I just really want to acknowledge that. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for your deliberations today. Thanks to the submitters actually for taking the time to make submissions. It's really important that we do get some feedback. I know some of us had people talk to us about our long-term plan, and to build that understanding. So with that, I'm going to close the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Adrian has